Get ready to dive deep. We're tackling alchemy today. And wow, you've sent us so much great material on this. I'm really excited to dig into it with you. We're going to break down the main ideas, decode all the symbols, and even see how these ancient principles might actually be working in your daily life. And of course, we can't forget about the Philosopher's Stone. So yeah, get ready for some serious transformation.
You know what's so fascinating about alchemy is that it's way more than just, all that mystical stuff you see in movies and stuff? It's this incredible mix of science and philosophy and even spirituality, all kind of rolled into one system that's looking to transform not just matter, but also the alchemists themselves.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about whipping up potions in a cauldron.
Not exactly. Well, I mean, there might be some metaphorical cauldrons involved, but
think of it more like
alchemy is about understanding, like the very essence of things, and then taking that knowledge to actually create change.
Oh, kind of like personal development.
Yeah.
But with this mystical twist.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. But before we go too far, we should probably start with a basic concept, one that might sound a little intimidating at first. It's called a materia prima.
Materia prima. Is that like
Whoa!
the secret ingredient? In some magic potion.
It's more like, okay, imagine you have dough before it's bread, or clay before it's shaped into a vase.
Yeah.
You have this lump of clay just sitting there. It's not much to look at, right? But it has the potential to become anything. That's materia prima. It's that primal, undifferentiated stuff that everything in the universe is actually made from.
So it's like pure potential, just waiting to be molded.
Yeah.
Into something specific.
And, we actually have a visual of this. In one of the sources that you sent, there's this diagram that shows materia prima at the very top and then branching down into two concepts, heil and chaos.
Heil and chaos. Those sound kind of intense. Are we talking about the kind of chaos that happened when I try to bake?
Well, maybe a little bit. But in this context, heil represents raw, formless matter, like that lump of clay before it's touched. And chaos isn't necessarily a bad thing here. It actually represents unorganized potential, like all the possibilities swirling around before things take shape.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to get it. So we've got this materia prima, full of potential, represented by heil and chaos. But it can't just transform on its own, right? There has to be something that drives the change.
You're totally right. It's not just about the ingredients. It's also about the energies that act on them. And two of the key energies in alchemy are niter and salt. Niter is all about energy and purification. It's like the spark that ignites transformation. It's the push that gets things moving.
Oh, okay. So is that like when you suddenly get the motivation to clean your room? That's niter.
Exactly. It's that energy that compels you to act, to make a change. And then you have salt, which is all about stability and preservation. It's the grounding force that keeps things from falling apart.
So it's like you need a solid foundation for a house. Otherwise, everything collapses.
Exactly. Niter provides the energy for change, while salt provides the stability for change to last.
This is making me think about my own life. Sometimes I'm all about that niter energy, diving into new projects and ideas, but then other times, I really need that salt stability, that sense of grounding. It's fascinating to see how these energies show up in our everyday lives.
That's what's so cool about alchemy. It's not just some abstract concept. It's a way to understand ourselves and the world around us. And speaking of understanding the world, we can't talk about alchemy without talking about the four elements.
Oh, yeah, the classic elements. Fire, air, water, earth. I feel like I learned about those in grade school.
They are pretty fundamental. But in alchemy, they're more than just building blocks. They each have specific qualities and associations. Fire is linked to transformation, air to intellect, water to emotions, and earth to grounding.
I can already see how these show up in my life. Fire transforms food when you cook. Air connects us through language and music. They're everywhere. But why are those specific qualities associated with each element?
So let's take fire, for example. It's associated with transformation because it has the power to totally change things. Think about a piece of wood. When it burns, it's no longer wood, right? It's ash. It's been completely transformed.
Oh, that's a great example. So fire represents that ability to break things down and create something new. What about the other elements?
Well, air is associated with intellect because it's invisible but all around us. Just like our thoughts, it represents that part of us that thinks and analyzes and communicates.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And water. It's always flowing and changing, just like our emotions, right?
Exactly. Water represents our feelings, which can be just as powerful as fire in shaping us.
And lastly, earth. I'm guessing it's all about stability and grounding.
Absolutely. Earth is that foundation, the solid ground. It represents those aspects of ourselves that are stable, reliable, and enduring.
Wow, this is starting to feel like a personality test. I'm definitely feeling a connection to water, but I could use a bit more earth in my life. But wait, the sources mentioned something called the alchemical trio: sulfur, mercury, and salt. Are those different from the four elements?
Yeah, they are. The alchemical trio represents these fundamental forces that are at play in the universe, and they also relate to parts of our personalities.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more about that personality connection.
So, sulfur is associated with passion, drive, and willpower. It's that fiery energy that fuels our actions and motivates us.
So if someone is really ambitious and always chasing after their dreams, they probably have a strong sulfur influence.
Exactly. Now, Mercury is a bit different. It's associated with intellect and communication and also adaptability. It represents that flow of ideas, the ability to learn and communicate well and to adjust to change.
Okay, Mercury sounds like someone who's quick-witted, great communicator, and always up for a challenge.
Right. And then we have salt. Salt in this context represents structure and stability. It's that which helps us bring our ideas to life, to create order out of chaos.
So a strong salt influence would mean someone is organized and practical and down to earth.
Exactly. They're the ones that provide that structure and stability to allow those big sulfur ideas to actually materialize.
This is cool. I see how all three principles
Yeah.
could create this fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
And if you combine those with the four elements, it's like a recipe
Yeah.
for understanding different personality types. Which of these principles do you identify with most strongly?
That's a great question, and one we can maybe come back to as we dive deeper. But first, let's move to another key concept, one that bridges the gap between the outer world and our inner selves.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, it really is like having the secret decoder ring for the universe.
Yeah?
But we can't forget that ultimate goal of alchemy, the image that always comes to mind, turning lead into gold.
Yeah, that quest for the Philosopher's Stone is such a classic symbol. But what does it actually mean? Is it really about, like, literal gold?
Not exactly. Remember how we talked about everything in alchemy having these multiple layers of meaning?
Right.
Well, it's the same for this. Turning lead into gold wasn't just about getting rich. It was more a metaphor for this process of personal transformation.
Okay, so then what is the lead that we're trying to transform?
Think of it this way. In alchemy, lead represents our kind of base selves, our limitations, those parts of us that feel heavy and dense and unrefined. It's like that potential inside us that hasn't been realized yet. It's the lead that we carry around.
And gold is our best selves, our full potential.
Exactly. Gold symbolizes purity and enlightenment, the highest version of ourselves. So the alchemists weren't really trying to make gold, literally. They were using this process as a metaphor to refine themselves, for transforming their limitations into something valuable.
Yeah, it's like taking all our flaws and imperfections and turn them into strengths. It's a pretty powerful idea.
It is. And it's important to remember, this isn't about getting rid of our flaws or pretending they don't exist. It's about acknowledging them, accepting them, and working with them to create something beautiful and valuable.
Yeah, it's a good point. So it's not about becoming perfect, but becoming more whole, more integrated. I'm curious, though, how does this turning lead into gold idea work practically? Do we need to build a lab and start mixing potions?
Well, you could try. But one of the fascinating things about alchemy is that it can be understood on so many levels we've already talked about, the physical level and the symbolic level, but it also has this profound psychological dimension.
It's the psychological level. So we're talking about transforming our minds, our thoughts, our emotions.
Exactly. Alchemy gives us this rich framework for understanding our inner world, for example. One of the key concepts in psychology is the shadow self.
Oh, the shadow self. What's that?
It's like those hidden parts of ourselves. The parts we repress or deny, the stuff we don't want to face, our fears, our insecurities, our negative thoughts and emotions, all that gets bundled up into this shadow self.
So it's kind of like the dark side of our personality.
You could say that, but it's not necessarily evil or bad. It's just those parts of ourselves that we haven't fully integrated. And alchemy has a lot to say about working with these shadow aspects.
This reminds me of something we talked about earlier, that concept of purification. Is that connected to the shadow self?
Totally. Just like an alchemist would purify a substance to get rid of impurities, we can use psychological techniques to become more aware of and integrate our own shadow selves.
Oh, okay. So instead of trying to get rid of those shadow aspects, we actually need to embrace them.
Exactly. It's about facing those parts of ourselves that we've been avoiding and learning to work with them. And just like purifying a substance can make it stronger, integrating our shadow selves can help us become more whole, more authentic.
This makes me think about therapy, like it's a kind of modern-day alchemy, helping us transform those lead aspects of ourselves. But wait, the sources also mention alchemy. On a biochemical level, what does chemistry have to do with personal transformation?
That's a great question, and it shows how alchemy was really ahead of its time. You see, alchemists were super connected to nature. They understood that transformation is happening all around us, all the time. Think about the changing seasons, the growth of a plant, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. These are all alchemical processes in action.
So we're talking about the chemistry of life itself.
Exactly. Even something simple, like watching a seed sprout, can be seen as an alchemical experience. You have this tiny seed, it seems lifeless, but it has the potential for a whole plant. And through these natural alchemical processes, that potential unfolds, and the seed transforms into a sprout, then a seedling, and then eventually a full-grown plant.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to look at it. So when we talk about alchemy, on this biochemical level, we're recognizing that we're part of this big web of transformation, that our bodies are constantly changing.
Precisely. And this leads us to another level of understanding, the neurological level. What do our brains have to do with alchemy? Well, modern neuroscience is starting to understand how our brains actually change. Through experience, this idea of neuroplasticity, the ability of our brains to rewire themselves, aligns perfectly with the alchemical concept of transformation.
So just like an alchemist can transform a substance, we can transform our brains through our experiences.
Exactly. It's about understanding that our brains aren't fixed. They're always evolving, and we have more power to shape them than we realize.
That's really cool. It means we're not stuck with the brains we're born with.
Exactly. Think about practices like meditation or mindfulness. They're not just about relaxation. They can actually change the structure of our brains, creating these new neural pathways.
Wow, it's like we're our own alchemists working with our brains to create something amazing.
That's a great way to put it. And it reminds us that alchemy isn't just some ancient tradition. It's this system of knowledge that has these profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our potential for growth.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the world through alchemical eyes now, seeing that potential for transformation everywhere.
It is, and that includes the transformative potential within each of us. Remember that question we asked earlier about the lead in your life that you want to turn into gold?
Oh, yeah. I bet our listener has thought about that. Now I'm even more curious about what those transformations might be. But how do we actually do it? What are some practical steps to start that alchemical journey?
That's the big question, and that's what we'll get into next.
Okay, so we're back and ready to keep going on this alchemical journey. We've talked about the different levels of alchemy, from the psychological to the biochemical, and even how our brains can be transformed. But before we finish, I want to know more about the practical side of this. Like, what can someone actually do to start their own alchemical journey?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? It's easy to talk about turning lead into gold, but how do we actually do that in our own lives? Well, alchemy has all sorts of practices and techniques that can help us tap into that transformative potential. But before we get into the specifics, let's talk about one of the most basic principles, self-awareness.
Self-awareness. That seems pretty basic. Don't most people already know themselves?
You'd be surprised. Self-awareness goes way beyond just knowing what you like or dislike. It's about having a deep understanding of your strengths, your weaknesses, your motivations, your fears, your patterns of behavior, all the stuff that makes you, you. It's like looking in a mirror and really seeing your soul.
So it's not a one-time thing. It's something you keep doing.
Exactly. It's about paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions to things, how you interact with the world, how you interact with other people. And the most important part, doing all of this without judging yourself.
So no, beating ourselves up for our flaws.
That's right. Self-awareness is about acceptance, not judgment. It's about seeing ourselves clearly, the good and the bad, so we can start to work with those parts consciously.
Okay, let's see how that sets us up for change. If we want to change, we got to know what we're working with. Yeah. But is self-awareness enough on its own?
It's a great first step. But to really get things moving, we need to add another ingredient, intention.
Intention. So we need to know what kind of transformation we want.
Exactly. Alchemy teaches us that change doesn't just happen randomly, it takes effort. a clear picture of what we want. Think of it as setting a destination for your journey.
That makes sense. It's like goal setting,
Yeah.
but with a spiritual side.
Yeah, you could say that.
Hmm.
But alchemical intention is more than just setting goals. It's about aligning what we want with our purpose, with that gold we're trying to create. It's about asking ourselves those big questions like, who do I want to be? What kind of life do I want? What's my contribution to the world?
Wow, those are big questions. But I get how knowing those answers would be powerful. It's like having a compass to guide you.
Exactly. And once we know what we're aiming for, we can start using all the practices alchemy offers to make it happen.
Okay, now I'm interested. Tell me about these practices.
Well, one of the most famous ones is meditation. And I know what you might be thinking. Meditation, that's a bit too out there for me. But there's a reason that meditation has been around for centuries.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about relaxing and de-stressing.
Nope. It's way more than that. In alchemy, meditation helps us cultivate self-awareness. It's about training the mind to be still, to watch our thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
So it's like creating some space between ourselves and our thoughts.
Yeah. Meditation helps us develop that inner observer that can just watch what's happening without getting caught up in the drama. And from that place of stillness, we can start making choices.
That makes sense. It's like we're building a lab inside our own minds.
I like that. And meditation isn't the only tool we have. There are also rituals.
Rituals, like chanting spells under a full moon.
Well, they can be as fancy or as simple as you like. What matters is that rituals create a space for transformation, a container for our intentions. They can help us mark transitions, let go of old patterns, invite new energies in, or even just connect with something bigger than ourselves.
So it's about making those meaningful experiences.
Exactly. Think about it. Rituals are all around us. Birthdays, weddings, graduations. These are all rituals that mark big moments in our lives. And we can create our own rituals to help us on our own journeys.
I'm starting to see how all of this fits together. Self-awareness, intention, meditation, rituals. It's like a system for personal growth.
It is. And the best part is, alchemy is a living tradition. It's not about following strict rules. It's about taking these principles and making them work for you.
I like that. It's like a recipe for transformation. But before we let everyone run off and start mixing potions, we need to talk about the end goal. What about the Philosopher's Stone?
Ah, yes. The ultimate prize. That symbol of enlightenment and wholeness. But it's important to remember, the Philosopher's Stone isn't a physical thing. You can't buy it or make it in a lab. It's more like a metaphor for the end result of the whole alchemical process, this integration of every part of ourselves.
So it's not about reaching a specific destination. It's about the journey itself.
Exactly. The Philosopher's Stone represents that state of wholeness, that alignment with our true selves. And it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, I'm just realizing. We've been talking about the Philosopher's Stone this whole time. It's not separate from the journey. It's a part of every step.
I love that. Every time we practice self-awareness, every time we set an intention, every time we meditate, every time we do a meaningful ritual, we're taking a step closer to that wholeness, to that Philosopher's Stone within.
This has been amazing. We've covered so much. From the history of alchemy to practical tools for transformation, I'm feeling inspired to keep going on my own journey.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are too. Remember, this alchemical wisdom is there for everyone. It's waiting for you to discover it.
To wrap things up, we have one last question for our listeners. If you were to start your own alchemical journey, what transformation would you want? What lead in your life would you want to turn into gold? Think about that for a bit. The answer might surprise you.
And remember, even a 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. Start small. Be patient with yourself. And trust the process. The magic of alchemy is real. It's waiting for you to unlock it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into alchemy. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Until next time, may your transformations be magical, and may your gold shine bright.